What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. I apologize for being late. We have had technical difficulty after technical difficulty. The NFL Combine is brutal. This is why you don't leave the Combine to come back to your Airbnb, because nothing works out the way you would like it to work out. Nick, it's a beautiful one here. We got so much to talk about. I won't waste anybody's time sitting here talking about nonsense about how I have 11 pillows around me right now trying to calm an echo, and have had to shift places about 30 times in the last minute and a half to try to get this thing to work. So I apologize to everybody. We're here. We're doing it. In the words of Conan O'Brien, F it, we'll do it live. It's where we're at. It's a beautiful one here in Indiana. Today was a day, my friend. There was a lot to talk about. Kenneth Grant and Walter Nolan both had pretty good things to say. Only one of them met with the Steelers. And to be honest with you, I think I'm equally as fired up about both of them, but we'll dive into that. Plus, the Green Bay Packers have made a superstar cornerback available for trade, and the question is, are the Steelers interested? Well, I got some intel on that. And the gift that keeps on giving, the wide receiver market never seems to end. And, well, last night, as we all went to tuck ourselves into bed and have sweet dreams of what's to come in Indianapolis on Wednesday morning, Tee Higgins decided to say, nah, we ain't done yet. We are just getting started. We're diving into all that and more. As I said, sunny here in good old Indiana. I apologize if there's a little bit of an echo. I apologize if I get blurry. I apologize if a bear runs in here and attacks me, because I think that's just next on the list. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling good. I really enjoyed that kind of half just showing of your entire Airbnb as you walked around looking for the right place to record. But you know what? I'm ready to talk some football. I'm ready to talk some combine, and I'm certainly ready to talk a little bit about, the Packers cornerback that you alluded to that I won't say his name yet.
Yeah. We'll dive in there last, to be honest. We're gonna go Tee Higgins, we're gonna go Walter Nolan, we're gonna go Kenneth Griffin, and then we'll talk a little corner trade and the possibility of said corner trade. Let's start. I sound like I'm getting sick. I am getting sick. It's on top of all of this, Walter Gruden. I am day by day losing it, but we're here. We're rocking. We're rolling. And I got a Dr. Pepper from good old Potbelly. That's delicious and holding me over. Let's start with Tee Higgins. Pull up the tweet, because last night, as we all got ready for sweet dreams of the NFL Combine, the NFL Draft, what Omar Khan had to say on Tuesday morning, Tee Higgins heard it all and said, nah, dude, I ain't done talking. I ain't done with this. I ain't done with that. I'm still going. And everything that Duke Tobin said at the NFL Combine about wanting to get Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase a deal and feeling good about it. Yeah, well, in the words of Tee Higgins, it's cap. And for those of you who don't know what cap means, it means nonsense, not real. Farce, we would say. We would say it's a farce. Tee Higgins tweets out the cap. I just went on a little bit of a rant about my Airbnb and everything else, so I'll let you start this conversation. I'll end it. Are we back? Are we back? Is Tee Higgins officially back?
I think we're a long way from being considered back in this conversation, because let's not forget.
In the dream like that.
Let's not forget the Cincinnati Bengals could still franchise tag him, and if it doesn't work out, eventually trade him. And I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals have any interest in trading him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I don't see a way in which he makes it to free agency, which is the most likely way that the Steelers would be able to seduce Tee Higgins over Pittsburgh, because I just don't see, even if the Bengals get to the point where they're saying, well, we're not going to be able to get a deal done, and Tee Higgins is threatening to hold out, and he's threatening to kind of skip the 2025 NFL season, we have to trade him. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are maybe not last, but near last on the list of teams that the Bengals would actually talk to.
See, I still hold strong that I don't think I agree with the argument of the Cincinnati Bengals wouldn't trade Tee Higgins to the Steelers. That would never happen. A sign and trade, which I have heard is a possibility in this instance, I don't think is on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I still hold strong a little bit that I really think that Tee Higgins could get pissed off enough to be in on the Pittsburgh Steelers and view them as a real option in 2025. Like, I really think that money talks. And at the end of the day, if he's getting $35 million from the Jets and $35 million from the Steelers, like, I really think that Mike Tomlin might have that influence to be able to pull him here. And I don't know. Like, I think I'm about it. Now, I agree with you that I don't think we're back yet. I think we're on the way. We're on the way of being back. We are the train has tossed a little coal in the fire. You know, the engine's starting to heat up just to stay warm, just in case it's got to get moving again. But I don't think we're back. I don't think we're rolling. I think this is Tee Higgins saying, guys, look it, I'm not playing under the franchise tag. There's no chance I'm going to do that. As he should not be playing under the franchise tag, and because he deserves $10 million more than the franchise tag. I mean, somewhere around $10 million. If you're going to pay Jamar Chase 35, Tee Higgins is 32, and I'd be okay with that number. I'm not playing under the franchise tag. I don't think a sign and trade is fair to anybody involved, and I agree with that. You're going to sign me, and you're going to stop talking as if you're going to sign me and things are growing great. Things are awesome. In Cincinnati, we're super happy. No, nobody's happy right now. The Bengals are in a spot where Jamar Chase isn't happy. He wants a deal. Tee Higgins isn't happy. He wants a deal. Joe Burrow wants both of them to have a deal. Trey Hendrickson needs a deal. And I think Tee Higgins is just making it known, like, guys, things are not great in Bengals territory right now. And maybe that could change, but the way we stand here right now, I think it's a little warm. I would say warm. I'm not going to say hot, not going to say moving. I think it's a little warm. Now, this is just the beginning. And the Tee Higgins thing isn't going to end. March 12th, I believe, is the deadline for franchise tags. It'll come right down to March 12th. They will negotiate the entire time. Then they'll slap them with a franchise tag. They're not going to let them walk into free agency, and they'll make a decision from there. But I think even with the franchise tag, this thing is not over yet, that anything could happen. Now, it's over for the Steelers. Yeah. Once the franchise tag happens, it's over for the Steelers. They're not going to sign and trade them to Pittsburgh. That's not going to happen. But I think a lot of things could happen between now and March 12th. I do. I think Tee Higgins could cause enough problems to want out of there. And I'm okay with a pissed off Tee Higgins if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, because he had to force problems to get out of there. Players got to do that all the time. All the time. I don't look at Tee Higgins as a problem, just like I didn't look at Brandon Ayuk as a problem last year either. Like, I didn't look at Brandon Ayuk as this big drama queen that the Steelers should be worried about. I looked at Brandon Ayuk as a guy who wants to get paid and deserves to get paid. And they weren't willing to pay him. And I think guys are deserving of their money. Tee Higgins is the next one to be deserving of his money. Will he get it? If I had to guess, probably. I just don't. I think a holdout is more likely than any other scenario in this instance. And number two is a sign and trade in my eyes. Like, I think that there's a real chance he's out of Cincinnati. Now, for the Steelers, we'll see what happens. A lot's got to go wrong. But, man, I think everybody got a little fired up last night. You know, I think everybody got a little, all right, what's going on here? You know, we back. And look, it just makes it known that it's not over yet. It's not over yet. We thought it was quiet. It's not over yet. And again, we'll see what happens. All right, let's talk NFL Combine. Today fired me up. There were two guys that I had my eyes on during this combine, or during today. It was the linebackers, the edge rushers, and the defensive tackles that spoke. And I looked at it and said, I don't care about the linebackers. The Steelers are not going to add a linebacker this offseason. I do not care about the edge rushers. There's no chance the Steelers are adding an edge rusher this offseason. And then I looked at it and said, defensive tackle, that's the position that truthfully I love. I have my eyes on D tackle all the way in the opening round of the NFL draft. And I think Walter Nolan and Kenneth Graham are winning me over by the day here and really just taking over as my favorites. And the way they spoke today, The way Kenneth Graham convinced me that he is a 3-down defensive tackle, because there were questions about whether or not he could be a 3-down defensive tackle. The way Walter Nolan just made it known, like, I'm a dog, and I'm trying to convince teams that I could play every single position on the defensive line. Doesn't matter what the defense is. I could back up TJ Watt or start next to TJ Watt, but I could also be Cam Hayward or Keanu Benton in the middle if I need to. It doesn't matter. I'll play all of them. Doesn't matter. I think they're big. They look the part. That's the thing is, like, nothing against Jaire Alexander, but I saw him today and I said, you're a lot smaller than I thought you were going to be. You are a lot smaller than the guy that I expected. Now, his hands are literally the size of this pillow. I'm not lying. And he probably is a monster. But Walter Nolan and Kenneth Graham just looked like guys that are going to come in here wherever they end up and make an impact. And they convinced me with it with their words, and they convinced with me with their size. And tomorrow, I'm sure they're going to convince me with their actions on the field. Those two got me hyped. I'm all in on them. I'm all in. Like, I am. I'm sorry to say, I'm all in on defensive tackle. Just the more I speak down here, the more I talk to people, the more I talk to scouts, the more I talk to agents, the more I realize how good this defensive tackle line or this defensive tackle class is, and how superior they stand in that back half of the first round. I will say this as well. There's like a growing belief that Kenneth Grant has a better chance to get to 21 than Walter Nolan does. And I'd be very much so okay with that situation. I'd be about Walter Nolan too. I definitely would be. But there's a strong belief that that's going to change. And I think I'm okay with it. You watched Michigan, you watched Kenneth Grant. I don't know how much Ole Miss football you watched this season, but you definitely know about Walter Nolan. If there is the possibility Kenneth Grant's the guy, I mean, there's a part of me that I think got a little bit more excited in that instance and said, that works out pretty well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's pretty okay. If it is happening, your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers would be in a great situation if they were able to get Kenneth Grant. I love Walter Nolan as well. I echo your sentiments, but I think Grant brings exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers need in the middle of that defensive line. The guy is an absolute stud. He's a rock. He's a boulder. And I think both of them are going to put on a show tomorrow. That's what I'm excited about. And that's what, everybody wants to see at the NFL Combine. They want to see big dudes run fast. And that's what we get to see tomorrow. And I'm sure both of these guys are going to put on a show. The problem is, once they put on a show, you mentioned they said all the right things today. And I would assume they were going to say all the right things today. One's coming from an SEC school. One's coming from a Big Ten school. So media is nothing new to these guys. So I'm not surprised that they knew what to say at the NFL Combine. They've probably been rehearsing it since the Senior Bowl ended. But tomorrow's where the rubber meets the road. But the unfortunate part about that is also tomorrow is the day that a lot of these scouts are going to look at this, and a lot of these GMs are going to look at this and say, man, maybe we should move Kenneth Grant up our draft board. Maybe we should move Walter Nolan up our draft board. And of course, It also goes into whenever they meet with whoever they end up meeting with down in Indy. But this is if they get the option to choose, I think Kenneth Grant is probably the better pick right now. But to have the option in the first place is a good place to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great play. Like, you think about the 21st pick in the NFL draft, and what comes to mind? Nothing. Boatload of nothing. Boatload of you're getting the third best wide receiver and the sixth best defensive tackle and like the 11th best quarterback, and maybe you could get an offensive lineman if Troy Fautanu falls to you. That's what you're thinking of. And in this draft class, like, you could get a building block on the defensive line that I think is masterful. Like, people will say, and I think Harmon out of Oregon also impressed me today. I want to add him to the list as well. And he said he models his game off of Cam Hayward. I love that. I think everybody loves that. But I think any of these three guys, I don't think Harmon's got a shot to slide to Pittsburgh. I would be surprised if Harmon falls to Pittsburgh. But the other two, like, I don't know. I just think that in this draft class, if the Steelers were to look at it and say, we need a guy who's a guaranteed, are a guarantee. We need somebody who we know is going to be a future piece to this defense. This is not a we need a position. This is not a we need the we need a linebacker. We're going to go get Devin Bush. We need a safety. We're going to draft Terrell Edmonds. We need a corner. We're going to go get Artie Burns. This is a who's the best player available on the most important side of the football, which is defense. Okay, this is a TJ Watt. This is a Cam Hayward. That's how I kind of look at this. You could even toss Bud Dupree in there because, to be honest with you, Bud Dupree was the best player available. He didn't work out that way, but he was the best player available in his draft. And I think Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant could be that guy where it matches positional need and best player on the board. And if that's the case, like, that's what the Steelers need. I'm all for it. Again, the more I talk, the more I listen to people, the more I ask questions, the more I see these guys, the more I start to realize that defense still wins championships. And the best thing you can do for a team is build that defense, and if Ashton Genty's sitting there at 21, I mean, that's a no-brainer. If there's some crazy way somebody nuts falls to 21, there's a no-brainer. You change it up, you go offense. Excuse me. But if your options are Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, or one of these defensive tackles, it's also a no-brainer to go with one of these defensive tackles. And it seems that it's more likely that that scenario is going to play itself out. And I think that works so well in the Steelers' favor. Again, we'll see what happens. Like you said, tomorrow they're going to hit the field, they're going to impress, and you're going to get teams that are all over them. Oh, now we got to get Kenneth Grant. Oh, now we got to get Walter Nolan. And there's a chance that everybody's gone by 15. So let me ask that question, because I don't think Walker out of Kentucky is a guy that I want the Steelers to even sniff, to be honest with you. I think there are a lot of other defensive tackles that you could get a little bit later in the draft that I'd feel good about. But it's just like last year where you were looking at Mims and Troy Fautanu and who was the dude out of Oregon that I will never be able to pronounce his name, God?
I mean, Oregon had Jackson Powers Johnson, but Oregon State had Talise Fuaga.
That guy.
Yeah.
And you had the conversation. You had to have the conversation of, do you move up, and when would you be comfortable with the Steelers moving up? I think that's kind of the situation here. So I'll ask the question: where do you move for one of these? You're not moving up for Emeka Egbuka. I think you'd move up for Ashton Genty, obviously. But the more I'm pretty convinced he's not going to make it out of top 5, let alone the top 12. When Dallas picks, where do you go for a defensive tackle? Would you go for a defensive tackle? Egbuka's off the board. We'll say Egbuka's off the board because that makes a difference. But in this scenario, we'll say Egbuka's off the board. When are you moving up? Are you moving up for a defensive tackle?
No, I'm not moving up at all. I think the Steelers have too many needs to throw away any of their draft picks, even if it's a 7th round pick, which it's going to be more than a 7th to move up anything substantial in the NFL draft. I'm not moving up at all simply because I want to keep all those picks in-house because the Steelers need as many swings as humanly possible. They have a lot of holes to fill. They have the most expensive defense, which means I'm not opposed to taking a defender, but I am opposed to trading up for another defender because you need to start backfilling that backside because the defense is expensive, but it's also getting older. So I think you need more talented players on the defense. You have a young offense, but you need to get more talent into that room. I think the Steelers just have too many holes to be trading up in the NFL draft. And I also think that, listen, if both of these guys are off the board, there's still going to be a very good player there at 21. And because of the fact that the Steelers have so many needs, it feels like no matter who's off the board, they're going to have options at 21 to fill one of their holes.
I agree with the premise. I think the options to fill one of their needs talent-wise might be a little bit low at 21 if a lot of these guys start flying off the board. I still think it's like a star potential. And I agree with the argument that you've already invested too much in this defense and the Steelers can't dig themselves an even deeper hole and say, oh, well, we have the 3rd highest paid safety, the 2nd highest paid edge rusher. Cam Hayward's making $35 million. And, now we gave up a 3rd round pick to go get a 1st round defensive tackle. And we're just going to hope it all works out in our favor. Like, we're just going to hope that just plays itself out. I agree with that. I don't think you dig deeper. depending on who's there and what the draft capital is, though, some of these guys are definitely worth it. I'm not saying that you should, but they hold the value, like if somebody's sitting there at 17 and the value is a 4th round pick, like they hold that value. I'm not saying it's the right move to do it. I'm just saying that the equation works out and I think Kenneth Grant, I think Walter Nolan, I think Harmon out of Oregon. I think all 3 of those guys are names that meet that scale where it goes, I'd move up this far to get this guy. And a number, because again, like, let me ask this. Is it, in my opinion, Walker out of Kentucky isn't going to work out. He gives me Dan McCullers vibes. Which, Dan was a great dude. Not the best football player. And he gives me Dan McCullers vibes. Jaire Alexander's 25 years old. Would you rather give up a pick there? Or is it a worse move? Not would you rather. Is it a worse move to trade up to get a guy, or a worse move to take a guy where there's potential of a flop, like real potential of a flop? Obviously, everybody's got that risk, but some guys obviously hold more risk than others.
See, I think you're thinking too narrowly for the first round. I think you're focused in on that defensive line, especially because, I mean, they're the guys you talked about. But as we always talk about when it comes to these draft conversations, it's a matter of how does the draft shake out? Because if the draft is shaking out where, yeah, all these defensive linemen are flying off the board because they're as impressive as you're saying they are, but on the other side of things, Omarion Hampton's still available, maybe Ashton Ginty's still available, maybe Emeka Ibuka's still available, maybe Ben Morrison is still available. There could be options depending upon who goes up, because when somebody goes up, somebody else has to come down. So it all depends on how the trade board shakes out. But if you do lose out on those 2 guys, you're probably not spending a 1st round pick on some of these other names. The guy from Oregon, you're not spending a lot of your 1st round pick on a lot of these guys. You're simply moving to a different area of need, which fortunately for the Steelers, I guess, they have plenty of them.
That's true. I agree with that. I think it's interesting where it all shakes out. And over the next couple of days, it's all going to change. You know what I mean? This is the NFL Combine. Tomorrow, we'll talk to corners, and there'll be somebody that impresses me there. And then at some point during this week, I'm going to start hearing stuff that you're going, oh, okay. Change the entire train of thought here. Everything I thought I knew about the Steelers, I no longer know about the Steelers because this person told me that, or these 10 people told me that, or, whatever, however it shakes out. But that will, at some point, that will go down. That's day 1 of the NFL Combine, and I won't lie to you, I'm pretty excited about it. Maybe as excited about the Packers news that dropped today that I got to text my brother about because he's a giant Packers fan, and said, "Yo, did you see this one?" And he said, "No. What am I missing?" And I said, "You guys are about to lose your star corner too." And he wasn't real happy about the situation. According to every NFL insider the Green Bay Packers have granted Jaire Alexander permission to seek a trade. The Pittsburgh Steelers obviously need a corner. I am very against Jaire Alexander, and I'll make that very clear from the jump here. You look at him, and it's threefold, okay? $25.4 million this season is what his cap hit would be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was hurt last year. Not a cap number that I feel comfortable with at all. 2, the Steelers are having conversations trying to figure out if George Pickens is going to come back or not come back. And, even last night, it just, once you break everything down and really sit with it and look at words and all, so on and so forth, like you realize like the Steelers are still more likely to move on from George than they are to extend George because they're looking to get rid of that noise. And then third fold, the dude has already been fined for conduct detrimental to the team. He's been suspended for games for conduct detrimental to the team. Like, this is not somebody that comes to Pittsburgh that you want Joey Porter to learn from, that you want Joey Porter to grow behind. That is just not what you're looking for. I don't know if you can go get a bigger, badder star corner. I don't think you can. I think Jaire Alexander tops all the lists, but I do not think he's worth it. I do not think he's worth it. And if we're talking 15 to 20 million bucks for Byron Murphy, and we're saying no to that, if we're saying no to 13 million bucks for DJ Reed, I am certainly saying no to $25.4 million for Jaire Alexander. I'm super anti make this trade, but it did become apparent. Our boy Jack Markowski on SI made the argument that the Steelers should. We were talking today, and hey, you think this is an article worth writing? You think this is news that connects to the Steelers? He said, yeah, I think I have an opinion on this. I said, all right, cool. I'm not going to, I don't even want to know what your opinion is. I want to read the story. I'm excited for the story. Well, his opinion was the Steelers should trade for Jaire Alexander. And I got to say, Jack, man, I do not agree. It was a great opinion, great detail in the story, and way to break it down correctly. I just don't think it fits what the Steelers are looking for. I think that they need simple, calm, don't go spend more money. If you're not giving up a 4th-round pick to go move up to get a defensive tackle, you're telling me you're going to give up something and pay Jaire Alexander $25.4 million? No, not happening. I'm anti, and on top of that, I've been, I think I'm more in on the second round of corners in this draft than I am most positions in the second round, maybe outside of running back. I think running back's got a great second round, great third round. But on the defensive side of the ball, I think Ben Morrison might fall. I think Maxwell Hairstein might fall. Or Chevelle out of ECU might fall. There are names that are going to be there in that second round that I'm looking at going, oh, who's the dude out of Texas? The guy out of Texas is also a stud. I think he might fall to the second round. I just think that the options are there, where if you're going to match value and say you're going to likely give up a second, maybe a 3rd round pick for Jaire Alexander, you could probably get a good corner and pay him $3 million compared to 25.4 and carry the baggage that he brings with him. Do you disagree? I doubt it, but do you disagree?
I am genuinely shocked. I was weighing over here whether or not you'd ask me, because every time we've brought up a big name cornerback, I have immediately shut it down. And I hate to do it to our good buddy, but I'm going to give the clean sweep. And no, I don't think, if I'm the Steelers, I'm interested in Jaire Alexander. I mean, for all the reasons that you outlined, but specifically, I mean, the issue that they have right now is their number 3 can't stay on the field. Corey Trice has only had 2 seasons, but in those 2 seasons, he's had one injury that cost him most of his sophomore season, and he didn't play a single snap of regular season football in his rookie season. So why would you bring in a number 2 corner in front of him that's also likely to miss some time going into 2025? So for that reason alone, I'm out on Jaire Alexander, let alone the fact that I have been banging the drum for the Steelers to spend their money on the offensive side of the football in free agency this offseason and not bring in a big money cornerback or defensive lineman. I think they need, if they're going to take the big swing, it needs to be on the offensive side of the ball. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but these names keep coming out, and they are big names. That there's a reason we're talking about it, because Jaire Alexander is a 2-time Pro Bowler, and deservedly so, because for a time you could make the argument that he was one of the best, if not the best, cornerbacks in the NFL. But he's not that right now, and he's certainly not worth the money, especially if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers team that needs to invest in offensive weapons.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just look at, if the Steelers, I really think they're on the verge of a riot if they go out and spend another big name on defense and just say, you know what, we have the least productive, most expensive defense in the NFL. We might as well just keep bulking it up. Whatever. Who cares? At that point, trade the 4th round pick. Go get Walter Nolan or Kenneth Graham, because you're going all in and you're not going to have an offense, and that's okay. I don't think that the game plan should be all offense all the time, but I agree with you. It should be strategically adding to the defense, which I think you could do better through the draft and through smaller signings to bulk up this defense and hopefully develop it for the future. They have their pieces. They don't need Jaire Alexander. They don't. I mean, people are going to argue it. They don't need Jaire Alexander. He's not a guy on the map. All right. With that said, that's everything on our agenda today. We are going to finish off the show the same way we do every single day, and that is answering all of your questions live from the NFL Combine or the Airbnb that is, given us issues and has now turned into a complete sauna. As I sit here, I won't lie to you. It is 9 million degrees in this Airbnb, but we're pushing out. We're having a great time. Toss them in the chat if you got them. We're going to answer all of them before we head out of here. Nick, I'm going to toss it your way. How we feeling?
Yeah, let's start off with Thomas, who says checking in at work in Australia.
Let's
Steelers
go.
offseason should be sign Fields, extend Watt, sign DJ Reed at corner, Chris Godwin, and Teair Tart out of Tennessee. Resign Erob, and that's it. What do you think?
I like there's some parts that I agree with. You extend TJ Watt, obviously. That makes too much sense. You extend TJ Watt, one, because he's TJ Watt, two, because it actually lowers his cap hit this year. So you extend TJ Watt, you sign Justin Fields. I agree with that one as well. That's a no-brainer. I like Chris Godwin. Teair Tart, I don't think I'm for Teair Tart, unless he's cheap. If you could get him for $3-4 million, I think I'd be okay with that, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Obviously, you re-sign Erob. I love the Erob move. I think the DJ Reed is the only one that I'm flipping the script on. I don't think that I'd re-sign or that I'd sign DJ Reed. I don't think that's a name that the Steelers have on their list. And personally, I just don't think that they're going to spend any money at corner to go get a veteran outside of Dante Jackson or somebody else super cheap. So I like the rest of it. I don't think I agree with DJ Reed.
Let's jump to Chris, who says, guys, my personal feeling is that the Steelers are not close to a Super Bowl and are better served to rebuild the right foundation for the future. Do you agree?
I mean, like, yes and no. I agree that the Steelers have to continue building their foundation, but I don't know, I don't think you tear it down. I think you have the pieces in place. Like, you have the offensive line to develop. You have Keanu Benton. You have Joey Porter. You have Peyton Wilson, and Patrick Queen's very young too. You have Nick Herbig. You have Alex Highsmith. You have TJ Watt. You have Jaylen Warren, hopefully Justin Fields, who's a lottery ticket, and Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. Like, I think the pieces are there. The foundation is being built. It's time to continue building it, which is, I agree with that side of it. Like, I don't think the Steelers are a Super Bowl team in 2025, but I also don't think that it's like a sell the team and move on. Like, I think it's you keep building the foundation and eventually it's going to click. That's where the Steelers are. You hope that in a year, the offensive line is in a really, really good spot. You hope the defensive line could get there over the next couple of years. You hope that your secondary develops and your linebackers develop and you find some wide receivers. That's what you do. But they're not, honestly, like, outside of quarterback, they're not many pieces away from like finishing this foundation. It's got a lot of good pieces in it if you really break it down.
Let's jump to Miguel, who says, hello, guys. Just stopping by for my daily GP has to go. Great show as always.
My thing with GP has to go is maybe he does have to go, but the Steelers are not going to trade him if they're not going to replace him. That's just not. That's how it works. The Steelers will make their phone calls and they will see what they can get, but they will also fully understand that they're not walking into the season with Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and Darius Slayton. That's just not happening. So I hear it. I hear it. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that will play itself out as the offseason plays itself out.
All right, let's go to friend of the show, Maddie, who says, have you got to meet with any of the players yet? And what are your initial impressions of them if you have? I know we talked about Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant, but have you met any others? And did anybody stand out?
Yeah, Ben Sauls, the kicker out of Pitt. Met with him today. Had a good little chat for a couple minutes there. Yeah, today was a slow day. We was waiting around for like an hour for Walter Nolan because something got held up with his medicals, which it could be a number of things. People always jump the gun and they're like, there's red flags, and I'm like, a machine could have broke. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing 700 million MRIs in a week span and x-rays and so on and so forth. Like, anything could have happened to hold that up. So I didn't really get time to talk to many other people outside of those three: Harmon, Grant, and Nolan, and then obviously Ben Sauls.
Let's go to Cody, who says, do we have a good offensive line and our quarterbacks hold on to the ball too long, or is our offensive line mediocre?
It's not mediocre. Mediocre is the wrong word. It's developing. developing is the right word. It's young. It's got literally one veteran on it. That's what it is. So I think the quarterback holds the ball too long. I also think that the Steelers don't have good wide receivers to allow him to get the ball out quickly. And I think the biggest component here is the fact that the offensive line has a lot of development left, but they just put the pieces together to develop it. So now it's just about, like, everybody's got to be patient with the offensive line. Everybody jumping the gun outside of Broderick Jones. Broderick's got 1 year left to prove it. If not, maybe you move him to guard and you try him out there. But I just think the rest of this offensive line, like, there's going to be struggles, and you got to take it week by week, but you also have to look at the macro and say that these guys are very young, and if they can click, they aren't supposed to click today, but if they can click in a week or a month or a year, it's a really good setup for the long term for the Steelers.
Let's go back to Maddie, who says, did you get any more information from what you said yesterday about Justin still being the guy?
No, I didn't really get nothing's really changed. Justin still is the guy. He wants to, the Steelers want Justin Fields to be the guy. They still view Justin Fields as the guy. Russell Wilson is the backup, but it's Justin Fields, man. Like, it's until something changes, until Justin says, no, I'm out, it's Justin, and the Steelers will remain wanting it to be Justin.
Let's jump down to Marlon, who says, aren't there names in the second and third round that could help too when speaking about the defensive linemen? He said, we had the top paid defense and lowest paid offense. I get Philly won, but they also invested in their offense heavily.
Yeah, they definitely did invest in their offense heavily, and the Steelers are doing that. Like, I think that needs to be pointed out, is the Steelers invested 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick in their offensive line. They are going to invest in a quarterback this offseason, at least to some degree. They are probably going to invest in a top 3-round running back this offseason. They're going to definitely sign a wide receiver, if not 2 wide receivers, and most likely draft a wide receiver as well. So the investments are going to be there. It's all about potential. It's all about opportunity. Like, that's the big thing. You got, like, everything is a case by case basis, everything. And if you just look at it and say the Steelers can't draft a defensive tackle in the first round because they need a wide receiver, chances are you're going to whiff on that wide receiver. Chances are you're just going, because the argument could be made there on the other side at all times. You could go back and look at the worst draft picks the Steelers have made in the last 10 years. You want to know who tops that list? Jarvis Jones. The Steelers needed a linebacker. Terrell Edmonds. The Steelers needed a safety. Artie Burns. The Steelers needed a corner. Like, the list goes on. And Kenny Pickett. The Steelers needed a quarterback. The list goes on and on and on. That's what they did at the times where they needed a position, and then they went and got one. It doesn't work out most of the time. So if defensive tackle is loaded, which defensive tackle is one of the most important positions in the NFL, it just makes too much sense to go after it instead of reaching or settling for a player that doesn't meet that threshold.
Let's jump to Brian Gallagher, who says, what 3 Steelers from any era would you pick to give eternal football power so they could stay in their prime forever? Join the members on Tuesday. Keep up the great work.
If this is Brian from good old D-Tag, Pennsylvania, toss that in the chat, because I would love to know, because shout out my boy Brian. Appreciate you. 3 Steelers from any era that, and I got a good Brian Dable story. If it is 3 Steelers from any era that you would pick to give internal football powers to so they could stay in their prime forever. Mean Joe Green, Ben Roethlisberger, and Troy Polamalu. That would be 3, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a 4th, and there's a long list, but I'm trying to think of a 4th that would actually be able to contend with those 3, and I'm struggling.
Antonio Brown would be 4th on my list. I really think he would be, because I just think that, if AB played with prime Troy and that defense, that team is unstoppable. It's one of the greatest teams of all time. So Ben, AB, obviously TJ Watt, obviously James Harrison's on that list. Jack Lambert's on that list. Mel Blount would definitely be on that list. That would be so exciting too. Donnie Shell would be on that list. You could go any of the wide receivers outside AB, but yeah, no, I'm going those three.
Let's jump to Miguel, who says, Noah, what do you think about Shamar Stewart and Landon Jackson?
I like Landon Jackson, to be honest with you. I don't know much about Shamar Stewart. I haven't watched much tape on Shamar Stewart. I like Landon Jackson. There are a couple of guys like later in the NFL draft that I think are going to get some buzz as things progress. And I like over the next couple of days, that's what this becomes, is defensive tackle is not a position that the Steelers are going to look much further than like the third round, maybe the fourth round. You look at other positions, wide receiver, running back, corner, safety, all these guys that will come in here. And I think the Steelers are looking mid-round picks. So I don't know. I like them. I do like Landon Jackson. Again, I don't know much about Shamar Stewart, but I will dive into his tape.
Let's jump down to Justin. Appreciate you checking in as always. Justin says Russ should be the guy, but if it is Justin Fields, I want Joe Milton backing him up. What would you trade for Milton out of New England?
A 7th round pick. I think maybe a 5th round pick. I'd toss a 5th round pick in there, but to be honest with you, I'd rather I personally think that if you're going to draft a quarterback, I had this thought last night, actually. If you're going to draft a quarterback in this year's draft, it's a great draft to draft a 3rd to a 7th round corner or quarterback. Like, I think they're all pretty good. They got some upside. Like, you could get a guy that matches the value of that pick. And I think that that's the way to go about it. It goes like Shadur Sanders is a reach, Cam Ward is a reach, Jalen Milroe a reach, Jackson Dart's a reach. Will Howard matches it. McCord matches it. Tyler Shaw matches it. Like all these names that you go down the list, I think they're pretty okay for where you could get them. And I think that I think it would work. But if in this scenario, Joe Milton, I think I'd max out on a 5th, and I'd be okay with a 5th.
Let's jump to Chris, who says, I'd feel better if we brought in a good free agent left tackle.
No, to be honest with you, I'd feel best if they moved Troy Fautanu to left tackle and kept Broderick at right and just said, okay, let's see if Broderick works. Troy played left tackle in college. The only reason that they made him right tackle is because they thought he was a right tackle the whole time. They just looked at him and said, well, his quarterback was a lefty. Okay. Nobody cares. I think in an ideal scenario in my head, you're putting Troy at left tackle. You're trying to make Broderick work at right. I just think I think moving Broderick to left gives him his best opportunity. But I also think that Broderick's weakest point is not his footwork, it's his handwork, and if you're going to you could fix handwork, but without changing sides. And I think if you could find a way to fix that, it works. Now, again, I think his best shot is the left side, but I also think Troy is a better player, and protecting Justin Fields or whoever's blind side feels a little bit more important to me than trying to develop Broderick Jones.
Let's go to our daily dose of Smooty Booty. Appreciate you as always. Says, what are your predictions for next year? I got us at 10-7 and a wild card blowout.
Smooty Booty's out here. I was gonna say Smooty Booty's out here just saying, yeah, just give me the regular. That would be great. Just give me the regular. I don't know. I'd have to see what the final schedule looks like, and what these teams play and when they play them. But yeah, I think an early prediction is like 9-8. I'm going 9-8. I think that. Yeah, you got to see what they're looking like. You got to see what it's early.
Hard to predict a record for a team that doesn't have a quarterback right now.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah. I would go, if I had to guess, it was super early, way too early, doesn't even count prediction. I'm going 9-8.
Let's jump to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, did you hear that on his show today, Pat McAfee announced a live show at a major arena in Pittsburgh? It'll probably be at PPG Paints.
Yeah, Nick actually told me before we jumped on here. I said I'd go. I like the Pat McAfee show. I'm a big fan of the Pat McAfee show. I got a good picture of, I don't think I could share it. Do I have my phone in my pocket? I don't have. Oh, it's right there. No, I got a good picture of Mark Caboli today on on the Pat McAfee show. I got a good picture of Mark Caboli on the Pat McAfee show today. So I'm excited. I think that would be awesome. Chances are I will attend. So if anybody else is going, let us know. Maybe me and Nick will be there.
Yeah, speaking of Mark Caboli, I stumbled across the video of, I don't remember which Pittsburgh station. I think it might have been 100 Star or 100.7 Star or something like that. They did the best pizza places in Pittsburgh, and they showed a video unveiling it, and who was just standing right in the background. And I said, he doesn't have any affiliation with that station. He is not on the air right now. He's just back there saying,
Awesome.
yeah, I wanted to be part of this. So I was like, is that Caboli? And of course, it doesn't take 2 seconds to be like, yeah, that's Caboli.
He was probably picking up a pizza, and they were just like, kaboom.
They were in the studio.
Like,
he might have been a judge.
He might, yeah. That actually, if I had to guess, the Caboli was a judge. If I had to guess.
Let's go to Irresistible Fan, who says, what do you think of the Packers trying to get rid of the tush push?
I don't know. I think the tush push is a cheat code, but I also think that nobody else can do the tush push as well as the Eagles. So there's got to be, that's the argument against it. Every single time, that's the argument against it. If every team did this and it was unstoppable every single time, okay, yeah, you ban the tush push. But there's one team that does it. And, that's like saying, oh, I'd like to ban the combination of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes because they're just too good. Can't stop them. That's essentially what I look at it as, is like, learn how to stop it, man. Like, I don't know how to do it, but learn how to stop it.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Either that or learn how to run it. That's the other thing.
That's the other thing.
It's basically saying, well, we need to ban the screen pass because this team's just too good at it. It's like, no, it's part of the game. It's nothing about it is illegal. So
yep, exactly. If every team did it and it was just nonstop, then there's an argument, but it's one team.
Let's jump to Walter, who says, would you rather draft Ibuka or a defensive lineman at 21, and why? Because to me, there's more defensive line that you can get in the second round. Also, if Ibuka is not there, would you trade down in the first round to get one of those defensive linemen?
I would not trade down in the first round for a different defensive lineman. I think if Kenneth Grant's there, if Walter Nolan's there, I think you take the best one available because, like, there are gaps. I do think that there are a little bit of a discrepancy between certain guys. If Ibuka's there, I think depending on who's there, to be honest with you, I'd go Kenneth Grant over Emeka Ibuka. Like, I just think Kenneth Grant is ridiculous. I'm shocked that what I'm hearing is that there's probably a more likely chance he's going to be there than Walter Nolan. I'd probably go Emeka Ibuka over Walter Nolan. I would probably go Emeka Ibuka over Harmon. And I think anybody after that, I'd go Emeka Ibuka over. I think Kenneth Grant would be the only name. I think Kenneth Grant is crazy. And like wide receivers, great. You need great wide receivers. Don't get me wrong. That superstar defensive tackle can change everything for you. So could a great wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. But Kenneth Grant's got like that upside in my eyes.
Well, there's also the fact that a great wide receiver also depends on a good quarterback and a good offensive line, whereas a great defensive lineman can just be great. Like, it'll help
exactly
that he's next to TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton in a better position, but a defensive tackle can go out there and take over more so than a wide receiver because he's reliant on so many other variables.
Exactly.
Let's jump to Loswald, who says, did you see an interview with Khan where someone asked him about any more coaching changes? And he said, that's Tomlin's job. Is that normal for all teams, or is Tomlin the only guy with that control?
I did see that interview. I was standing right next to the guy who asked the question. That's pretty status quo across the NFL. Coaches hire their coaches. That's why when there are coaching changes, when there are head coaching changes in the NFL, most times a lot of that staff gets changed over as well because those coaches bring their coaching staff. So that's very status quo in the NFL.
Let's go to Greg, who says, Ray Fittipaldo says that the Matthew Stafford situation has to resolve itself before any other QB deals are going to be signed. What do you think of that take?
Yeah, I agree with it. Matthew Stafford's the biggest domino to fall here because it just is. Like, he is the biggest name on the market, whether you want him or not. He's the biggest name on the market. And I don't think the Steelers are super into that situation, but I also think that it holds everything up, because if, let's just say, the Giants land Matthew Stafford, that's a game changer for guys like Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. It for one adds a whole other element to what's going on. It opens up another team. Like, it's the biggest domino to fall, and it's both sides. Like, that's the part he's taking it from Steelers and all of the 31 teams and the players themselves, because Justin Fields has got to be sitting there going, the Russell Wilson too, like, the Rams job's open. That's a damn good job. That's a good job to have, and I think it's both sides, but that is the biggest domino to fall. I agree with that take.
Let's go to Matt, who says, good afternoon, guys. Noah, I went to grad school in Indy. If you like beer and good pizza, check out McHugh's. Great local bar. You'll smell like the grease the next day, but that's when you know it's good.
I agree. That's when you know when it's good. McHugh's, all right, I'm all about it. Last night I was at the Slippery Noodle. Love the Slippery Noodle. Tonight I'm going to some fish restaurant, I think, that it's with work. You know what I mean? Like, I was told to go here. All right, sounds good. Do they have a couple of beers? Sounds good to me. So McHugh's, I'll check it out. Appreciate you.
Let's move to John, who says, why haven't we re-signed Skoranek? Higgins, Adams, Kirk, Slayton, or whoever we sign or trade is good, but it's not going to help on special teams.
Yeah, I think Skoranek's going to come back. Skoranek's pretty low down the list of needs right now. They'll start working on that stuff eventually. I don't think that's like a massive ordeal. It's like E-Rob, like chances are they're going to bring E-Rob back. But they got to figure out the quarterback. And until they figure out the quarterback, that's like a 2-day negotiation, E-Rob and those things. Quarterback takes a while. So I wouldn't panic. Those moves are going to come probably right before free agency, but those moves are going to come.
Now, earlier in the episode, you mentioned a corner from Texas. Goodfella says, let's talk about that corner from Texas. Jaire Barron, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do like him a lot, actually. I do like him a lot. My problem is I just don't see the Steelers approaching a corner early in the draft. I don't know why, but I don't. They like Corey Trice. They are probably going to sign like a low-end veteran, most likely Dante Jackson, and they're just going to go from there. Like, I really think that they're okay with their cornerback room, and they have bigger needs. So I like Jaire Barron. I think he's very impressive. I think he sits right there with the Chevelles, with the Hairstons. I personally think that Will Johnson and Travis Hunter are like miles ahead of these guys. But the Ben Morrisons, like, I think he's right there in that group. And I think he's got a ton of upside. I think he's an instant starter, but I just don't think the Steelers are that interested in a corner.
Let's go to Kyle, who says, Nick and Noah, what are the odds that the Steelers trade back from 21 to get additional draft picks, maybe a second and a fifth? What are your thoughts?
I don't think you're getting a second. I think a second is pretty hefty for pick 21. I think a fifth. I think maybe a fourth. I think maybe you could get a third if you really pushed. I don't think you could get a second. I think a second's pushing the limits there. Depends on who's there. If nobody's there, cool. Sounds good. Move back. If everybody's there, take your guy. I'm anti moving back for another 4th round pick. I always am. Like, just take your guy. Take the best talent available. Stop trying to build like pieces in a pretty draft, and just go get a guy, and then try to get another guy in the 2nd round. And if you could get a 1st and a 2nd round guy in a really good 1st and 2nd round guy in a couple of drafts in a row, your team is really good, and then you hope that one of these other guys click. I just think that's the move I would go with if I was the GM.
We got a couple from Darian here. Let's start with this one. For both of you, what about Justin Fields makes you jump to want to re-sign him? Is it potential, dynamic, or just a different style of quarterback?
Potential. It's all potential. He's 25, 26 years old. He's a lottery ticket. That's how I look at it. It's all potential. Your other options are old dudes who don't really give you the greatest ceiling and give you a pretty average floor. Justin Fields probably gives you a pretty low floor, but he probably gives you the highest ceiling. And again, he's 26 years old. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me to go any other direction. Justin Fields is so young, and if he works out, you just hit it big. If it doesn't work out, what is the difference between a bad Justin Fields year and an average Russell Wilson year? Either way, you're not going to win a Super Bowl. And the difference is that at least Justin, you took a shot at it. Russ is leaving in a year. So it all has to do with potential. Everything with me is potential.
Darian has a second one here that says, if you can, do you agree that the NFL is moving more towards mobile quarterbacks rather than a pocket passer?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, Mike Tomlin said it a million times that QB mobility is very important to the NFL game these days. That's where it's going. I think it's causing issues, to be honest with you. I think it's causing less pocket passers to get opportunities. And because of that, there are no star quarterbacks. You look at the NFL draft this year, you look at the NFL draft next year, there's really like that not that big giant name outside of Archie Manning, but that's still a question. Like Archie Manning could suck this year. We have no idea. And that's just like, I think it's causing issues where like there's a bit of a quarterback shortage. But I do think that's where the NFL is going. Yes.
Let's jump to John, who says, would you rather trade for Deebo Samuel or draft a guy like Savion Williams?
Savion Williams all day, all day. I was told Debo is a little out of shape these days, and look at I haven't been a Debo guy since the beginning. I'm not going to change now. That's how I look at it.
Listen, I'll say what I always say about myself: round is the shape. Okay, Noah.
Don't get me wrong. I fit that shape. I classify as round. Okay, but I don't play in the NFL. I watch it and talk about it, and I'm allowed to be round.
Let's go to DG, who says, is just me, or do you guys also feel like investing in a quarterback coach like Josh McCown would be better than investing in quarterbacks that we don't have?
I don't know. I don't know if I think this question's a little difficult to answer because like I think a quarterback coach like Josh McCown would be awesome. I think that's a great quarterbacks coach, but like I don't think Josh McCown makes Mason Rudolph the next Tom Brady. Like I don't think that automatically happens. I think you need both, you know. I think that's what you need. I think you need a quarterback and a quarterback's coach. That quarterback might need to have some things fixed, but I still think that you need a quarterback and a quarterback's coach, and that's the perfect blend. And I like Tom Arth, y'all. I'm a big Tom Arth guy. So I don't know if I think this question is almost unanswerable because you can't pick between the two. I think you got to have both.
Let's jump to David, who says, what ball hawk secondary player can we bring in to help out Minka and the secondary as a whole?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't really know the free agent safety class where we stand right now. You know, you're obviously going to replace DeMonte KZ and try to go find somebody else. But who is out there and what the names are going to be? I mean, I'm guessing you're pulling up the list now. You'd need a veteran, a younger veteran. I don't think Ryan Watts is coming back. From the vibe I got from Omar Khan was that like he might be done. Like it might be that serious of an injury, which sucks with neck injuries, but I would think you have to go replace him. Do you have the list up?
Yeah, the class of free safeties is not deep at all. It's Justin Simmons, Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer, Rodney
great
McLeod.
Names, just not coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, Rodney McLeod, Andre Sisco, and Tashawn Gibson. I mean, maybe Cameron Bynum might fit.
Cameron Bynum would be a good one.
Is he gonna get out of Minnesota? Is the question. I think there's a chance they just go back and sign him. So
yeah, that is true. They are out of money, but I agree with that. I think there's a chance they bring him back. But that's what like you're not going to go get a starter. It's probably going to be a guy that got, to be honest, we don't even see coming. But I will dive into it. I'll create a list. I'll definitely create a list.
Another Deshaun Elliott would not be the worst thing in the world.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm like. You go get all the Deshaun Elliott's all day, every day.
Let's go to Dylan Smith, who says, joining in late, but wondering your opinion on this. Do you think the way that the Ayuk situation played out last season will make the Steelers more quick to pull the trigger on a guy they really like this year?
100%. 100%. They are not going to wait around on a wide receiver, which is why I think like the urgency for an Emeka Ibuka isn't going to be there in the first round because they're going to make it. Like I wouldn't be shocked if they sign Justin Fields, go get Cooper Kupp, and sign a Chris Godwin or Darius Slayton. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think they're going to overreact in the wide receiver market. But yeah, I think last year, the way that played out, certainly they're not going to. Last year killed them. You know, that was the biggest mistake they could have made was waiting and putting all their eggs in one basket. And this year they aren't. They are going to take whatever basket comes their way first. That is how they're going to look at it.
Let's jump to Kaleo, who says, if we re-sign Justin Fields, how do you feel about Jacoby Brissett as his backup?
Yeah, I don't mind Jacoby Brissett. I think he fits what the Steelers would be looking for. I'll toss another name out there. I think Tyler Huntley would be a pretty okay backup for the Steelers for Justin Fields. He's the same exact quarterback. He's been a backup before. He's won some games. I don't think he gives you much, but I don't think Jacoby Brissett gives you much either. You know, I don't look at Jacoby Brissett as a guy that's going to win you a Super Bowl. I just look at him as a valuable backup. I think Tyler Huntley could fit that mold. But yeah, I think Jacoby Brissett in my eyes is a name to keep your eyes on, but I'm almost positive he's still under contract with the Patriots. I'm not certain about that. If he is, we'll see what happens. If he's not, he would be a name that I watch. Yeah, if he's a free agent, then the Steelers liked him last year. I would imagine they like him again.
Let's jump to Chris. Appreciate you again. Chris says, how are we at inside linebacker? Are we set or do we have holes to fill?
Nah, all set. Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, you're probably going to keep him. From what I've been told, Cole Holcomb's like willing to split his contract in half to make this thing work. So, you know, you're looking at Cole Holcomb, who's going to stay, Peyton Wilson, who's going to stay, Patrick Queen, E-Rob, Mark Robb. You're set. You're good at inside linebacker. I don't think the Steelers even touch that position. I think they just bring back Mark Robinson.
All right, and let's close it out with Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, any update on Roman Wilson or Cole Holcomb?
Yeah, just gave one on Cole Holcomb. I expect Cole Holcomb to be back in 2025. I think Roman Wilson is less of a guarantee that he has like significant playing time, but they are going to check him out. But Cole Holcomb, we'll see what happens. I think he's the best fourth inside linebacker you could possibly have in the NFL. So I think that's a great move. And at $3 million, I mean, sure, why not? If you're willing to split it, you know, I think that's perfect. So I expect Cole Holcomb to be back. I expect Roman Wilson to be healthy. We'll see what happens from there.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Shout out to all our members who called into today's call-in show. If you guys are not a member, you can check out the link in our description and in the live chat here to become a member. Call into that live and show, and I will answer your question every single Wednesday. So appreciate you guys as always. We will be back live tomorrow from the 2025 NFL Combine. Until then, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.